Welcome to the Tower Yoga Podcast, where we dive deep into the heart of yoga and community. Come along with us as we explore the transformative power of yoga, share insights, and inspire one another on this journey of life. I'm Kellee Williams, and I'm your host and the co-founder of Tower Yoga. Thank you for joining our yoga community. Hello and welcome back, listeners, to the Tower Yoga Podcast with me, Kellee, and I'm here with community member Storm, who will be facilitating a self-defense workshop happening on Saturday, December 14th. So I'm really excited to have you here and just to get to know you a little bit better. I was thinking to get started, if you want to share anything about yourself, if you know your astrological sign, if you want to share your cultural background, anything like that you would want the listeners to know before we dive in.
Yeah, sure. My name's Storm Heredia, and I grew up here in Fresno, born and raised, and I've pretty much been training in martial arts my entire life, a little bit on and off going into middle school. I started to venture into other sports at that time, but I've always been tied to karate and boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, and I would say that's one of the main staples in my life. I am indigenous, and my tribe is Anishinaabe from the Red Lake area, and I also have blood from Mexico. I'm very proud of both lineages. Let's see, what else?
Do you know your astrological sign, like your
My
sun sign?
astrological sign, yes. I figured this out barely last year, surprisingly, but I'm an Aries.
Cool. Awesome. Well, how did you make the transition from, doing the martial arts as a youth into becoming an amateur fighter?
It was actually, I didn't really think about it at the time, I was just going with the flow of what I was doing, which was karate. And I was into it probably as soon as my mom gave birth to me. I came out kicking and screaming and giving the doctor a hard time, So my father was training in karate and in kickboxing for about 20 years or so prior to, me coming out into the world and my siblings. So it's like, to me, it was just very natural. And, I felt it in my blood. And so it was easy to tap into karate when I got back into it. And I loved it. And the type of karate that I did, the sport that I did it was semi-contact. So it was always called kiss touch, where you can tap somebody, but you're not supposed to hit with like lethal intent.
Mm-hmm.
But when I made the transition over from karate and semi-contact tournament fighting over into more full contact fighting, which was into kickboxing and boxing and Muay Thai, that was a little bit of a game changer for me for sure, because I had to learn how to take pain on a different level. And that was definitely a humbling experience. And I would say life-changing for sure. I mean, it really tests your will on a different level. And I really enjoyed that. Like, I love that challenge that it presented, and so when I made that transition, I thought, well, this is like something that I want to do and I want to keep up with. So that's what I've decided to do since, for probably the last 5 years now. I've been doing amateur Muay Thai, full contact bouts, and I see myself going deeper and deeper into it, and having a successful professional career eventually. So that's definitely one of my goals.
Cool. Yeah, like in yoga, we're always talking about and also hopefully experiencing the connection between mind and body. And so I can only imagine some of the lessons you glean from not only fighting like in the ring, but just even training. So are there any I don't know, memorable lessons you have from either a fight or just something that you went through in like a training camp sort of moment?
There's plenty,
Kind of
but
putting you on the spot, huh?
well, I guess the one of the main ones that comes to my mind is my first full contact bout. That was a very that was a memorable moment just because that was when I was tested my not only my endurance, my skills, but my willingness to like persevere through pain, because I took a really hard knee to the body, and I felt like I couldn't breathe at all. Like, and I was still moving. Like, I don't know what was going on. I think I was just on autopilot mode for like a good 10 15 seconds and just fighting to survive. But it was in those like 10 15 seconds that, it's like seems like you can't see my hands, but that 10 15 seconds kind of feels like it drags out to a whole hour or 2 hours. It's very slow in time, and as you're experiencing it. But in that little time frame, I realized, like, am I going to be a victim in this fight, or am I going to step up to the plate, and am I going to achieve what I want to achieve in this fight? Regardless if I win or lose, the goal was just to go out there and fight my best and not submit. And that's always part of my goals. And thankfully I made that decision to not be that victim in that fight, and not to be like a punching bag. And then once I did, it's like everything started to kind of clear up. I started to finally find my breath, and I was able to get back in there and fight hard for the rest of that round and the next round. And I ended up losing that fight by split decision, but I mean, to this day, I still think that I won, but it's all good. It's just amateur. But
Do
ever
you,
since that fight, sorry, do you mind if
yeah,
I finish
yeah,
this thought?
please.
Yeah, ever since that fight, it was, I take that with me. Like, you must embrace the suck. You have to embrace it. The suck that comes with it is part of the game, but it also tells you how much grit you have. It tells you how much willpower you have, and that is rewarding in itself.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking of like how that has translated out of like that practice into your life, because that's so true. We have to wear things in life and feel them in order to grow, to even just continue on. And the only way I can, I guess, like relate is through like ultra running and these marathons and things like that. And it always surprises me how much. And sometimes people are like, "Oh, you must like to suffer," and these kinds of things, doing these distances, especially in the mountains because it's on trail. And that's not true at all. Like I don't necessarily like that in its own right, but I like what I get from it
Mm-hmm.
and what I take away off of the trails and when my running shoes are off in my life, in my relationships, not only to other people but myself. And I learned so much by what I call like being in the pain cave, because there's always a point where you hit this wall where
Mm.
you're the inner thing, and it's just like, okay, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to chisel even though you can't really like see the light, or are you just going to stop here and like freeze and like quit? Which, yeah, sometimes needs to happen. You know what I mean? Like but there's so many lessons that I get in the moment and that I take away, which is why I really love that. So I can only imagine that, especially like at your age and everything too, like learning how to feel pain. I think, especially for men in our society, it's something where it's, I think, beautiful that it's constructive and sort of like contained, and you can learn how to feel it and like react in a way that's safe and all these kinds of things, rather than just like holding things in. To me, I can see that being like such a good tool, and your ability to not just feel it and never process it or learn how to do anything with it, but how to like carry forward from what you
Mm.
like, take away. Yeah. So do you feel like these things show up in your life outside of training? Like, is there crossover?
For sure. there's like humongous crossover. It's a direct translation over to everything you do in life. Like if you're not willing to take, pain in a fight, then you shouldn't be fighting, you know? If you're not willing to accept challenge at the workplace, then maybe you should find a different line of work or something. So there's always going to be challenge in life, and it just, I suppose that it's just determined on how far you want to succeed in your life too, and what challenges that are going to be presented along the way on that road that you choose. And obviously, to me, like there's with those challenges, they're not always going to be something you can foresee. So the ability to adapt your kind of your rhythm and flow that you have, the groove that you have to your life in which you're finding success, you have to be able to adapt that constantly and adjust that to whatever is happening externally, but not let it define you. And I found that because I'm so invested with fighting and I've had this opportunity to be a fighter and challenge myself in that way, it's helped me to become more resilient in everything else that I do. And I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, all the way down to like that first fight being a split decision sort of like outcome, and you having to just like accept that, even though you disagreed. And that's just so interesting because we have to do that so much in life, these sort of split decisions, if you will,
Mm, mm-hmm.
by other people that you don't agree with, and things like that. It's just so interesting to learn how to, like do with what is within your hands and in your control, and learn how to live through the decisions and things and everything that's out of your hands,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's, yeah, really beautiful. Well, what brought you to the
Thank you.
yoga practice? I'm interested. Was that something that you were introduced to like young, or is that something that you're just kind of recently including?
I will say this, Bobby Sano she's my favorite, and she got me into yoga. She like for the longest she was always saying, "Oh, Storm, you should come do yoga. You should come try this out. I'm sure it'll help, with your flexibility and this and that." And she was always trying to rope me in. And well, one day I was like, "All right, I guess I'll just go. I don't have training and whatnot." So yeah, I followed Bobby, and she had a guest pass, and it was over at Tower Yoga, and I just I guess I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I enjoyed the way that the process is and the teaching and the organization and the cleanliness of the environment, and it was just a very good spot to be at. I mean, I've been to different yoga spots, but definitely Tower Yoga is like my spot. That's how I feel. And along the way, I think it reflects well on what I do in fighting and in life. And I love the teachings. I love the feeling that you get afterwards, and I think it brings me a good balance of like, you know, finding peace in my day. Um, that's different than punching people or getting punched. There's some times where I'm coming in and I feel like I need some oil in my joints and I'm all beat up and whatnot, but after a good yoga sesh, I'm like back to normal almost. So it's uh it's been a great positive contribution to my life, and I foresee myself continuing on with doing yoga and taking it to where I could.
I love it. I love it. And for listeners who don't know, Bobby is a community member. She's been like a long-term member since pretty close to when we opened. Yeah, she's a regular. And she's always trying to bring in her kids or
Hmm.
grandkids or people that she knows really well and loves. And she just speaks so highly of you. So it's really, really sweet.
She's an OG for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I like thank you for saying all those kinds of things about tower yoga. And it's why we're here. We're just trying to be a place like almost in a way a little bit of like a refuge or sanctuary for people to come through from like the hustle and bustle of their every day. And we do want to be a place where you can not only get like a good stretch or sweat or get stronger, but also that you can get a good message and that it's like personal for you from the philosophy behind the yoga teaching. So it's a huge, I think, compliment to anyone who's just like living a life, but I think especially in your position where you're exerting in such a way, uh, every day. So that's awesome.
Mhm.
What have you? So you're going to be leading a self-defense class for anyone who wants to come. It'll be free. Like what inspired that? Because you came to us with that idea. What inspired you? Like, what's your intention with offering this to the community?
It's a good question. I think just spreading that knowledge too of how to defend yourself in certain situations and how to use your fist, how to use your body as a weapon to defend yourself. And I think that there's a lot of people out there who don't know some of the simple basics of how to do that and when to use that. So it'd be very beneficial for people to learn that. And I think that, is just something that I wanted to offer to Tower Yoga and expression of, my appreciation of the relationship that I have with your guys' business, and I think it's just very practical. Like we're going to go over a lot of very practical movements that are going to give you just that much more confidence in situations in which you might feel lost in, or just helping you to find that awareness in environments that might not be the best. So I look forward to teaching it and guiding everyone through and helping everyone to channel that little bit of anger or frustration or something through hitting those pads, because I know that's always a fun and exhilarating time. So I look forward to it. I look forward to teaching everyone, and I really hope that it's a big turnout. And if everything goes well, I'd like to keep it going too, if that's what we want. So I think,
Mhm.
yeah, it's gonna be a great time for sure.
Yeah. And I feel it like moving through me to speak to anyone who is like, how is that like yoga? How is this peace and love? It's like fighting. And I just want to say, first and foremost, because one of the teachings is ahimsa, it's nonviolence,
Mm,
but you not being able to protect yourself in a situation where harm could be done to you, that
hmm
is going against your right to be here. And there's been times where, for instance, like I've been chased before, two separate times, one in San Francisco by this man, like, and I would have no idea. Like, luckily, I could outrun this guy. And finally, I turned around and I realized he wasn't going to catch me. And I was just like, what the hell are you doing? And he was like, I just wanted to scare you. I wasn't going to hurt you. I was just like, what? And I had no way. I don't know what I would have done if I couldn't have like booked it like that. I also think something that you said in the beginning is you said that at first you were learning that like kiss touch style where you didn't have the intention of like lethal force behind it. And I also think that like if you learn these skills and you also have the intention that it's like to protect yourself and maybe even this other person from doing something they don't really want to do, hopefully at like a soul level. And if you can like stop someone from potentially causing more harm they could if you didn't know what you were doing, then in my opinion, you're contributing to nonviolence more so than violence. It's also like the intention behind, I think, everything is really, really huge. The second thing I'll say is that
Sure.
I shared this in a class recently that I had a psychic one time tell me because I went to her, I was having night terrors. I felt like I was getting very like psychically attacked. And she was like, oh, have you ever taken a self-defense class? And I was like, what? No, it's like I feel fine. It's like mentally and emotionally and like psychically. And she's like, yeah, if you can't defend yourself in like your body in like the 3D, that actually leaves you more open. This is getting kind of woo woo, but like to psychic attacks and things like that. And I was just like, whoa. So I did take one self defense class, and my
hmm
night terrors at that point like stopped. It was so interesting. And I was like, this could be coincidence, or maybe it's like placebo because she told me do that. That was essentially the prescription. And then these like forces that feel scary to you won't like have their grip on you. They'll release their hooks.
Uh-huh.
And that seemed to happen. So I was like, well, I don't know exactly why it helped. So that's just the other thing I want to say, because I can only imagine, we have a lot of yogis listening, and we're deeply committed to living a path of creating as like little harm as possible. Although if you're living, you're breathing, you're creating harm. You know, I'm someone who's like, I'm not even like eating meat, but I drove into a bug the other day, and like the bee died on my windshield, and I was like, I'm so sorry. It's like there's no way that you just, I think it's about trying to like cause as little as possible based on, you know, like your like beliefs and whatever you're comfortable with, and your values, and your cultural values and these kinds of things. But I could only imagine someone being like, what, like self-defense, but I could see causing a lot more harm by not knowing what you're doing.
Exactly. And I like that you brought that up too, because I get asked that as well. Like, how are you so calm and how are you so peaceful? But then when you're in the ring, you're like a totally different animal, blah, blah, blah. And I think, like, well, there's that one saying that goes, it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in war. And I truly believe that. When it comes to a moment in time, if you're caught in a sticky situation, wouldn't you rather have known to use your body as a weapon than not being able to at all, right? In that kind of situation. Yeah, like you should learn how to use your body as a weapon, but then also know how to use that weapon and when to use that weapon, and not just for your own personal gain, but for self-defense purposes, for self-confidence, to build self-confidence, to build a will of character. I mean, there's so many other things that are attached with that you can learn other than simply knowing how to hurt someone. I mean, it's unfortunate that we might have to come to that circumstance outside of like sport fighting, but it's the truth. That's the truth that we live in. And thankfully here in Fresno and the United States, I guess say, you don't really have to worry about that as much. At least in my personal life right now, I don't have to worry about that. Maybe some others, but living elsewhere in the world, I mean, like that's you don't know if you someone might challenge you and someone might threaten you to steal something from you. Maybe they want to hurt you. Maybe they want to hurt someone that you know. I don't know. It's just there's always a situation that you could get caught in, and it's better just to know and understand what to do so that you can keep living, so that you don't get hurt more than what might happen. And as long as you learn the philosophy behind what it means to learn martial arts, I feel like that's what really shapes your character and molds you into a better person, and teaches you how to use these weapons so that you're not just using them to be advantageous over others who don't. So that's a big aspect too, is like the martial arts philosophy that you learn. It's not just about fighting. It's not just about going out there and hurting somebody, but it's about everything else in your life that can be sharpened, that can be opened, I guess, and and empowered. But then you also humble yourself along the way.
Mhm.
So a big part of it is the teachings that come with it. And thankfully, I've had plenty of awesome teachers in my development as a child in martial arts who have taught me that. So that goes a long way for sure, and it molds you to be a peaceful warrior, not someone who's just out there looking just to fight all the time. Even though I do feel that sometimes, because I'm a natural fighter. I love to fight,
Mhm.
but it's just having that discipline, having that humility along the way, the
Mhm.
honor and everything else that's included.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. And I think it's like, it's not the urges that are the issue, it's like how you act on them.
Right.
You know, it's like, it shouldn't be so taboo to be like, sometimes I want to do this or that, or I feel this or that. It's like, yeah, that's like so human. Will you be speaking on the philosophy at all before we start like doing the hitting on the pads?
Of course, yeah. I'm gonna like I'll sprinkle a little bit here and there, so like it'll be defining moments of the class to where it'll be most impactful. But I'm definitely gonna include everything that I could. Like I love to teach. I've been teaching for about 8 years now, and it's just natural to me. So I look forward to doing it and giving my best, and hopefully everyone else will appreciate what they learned that day.
Yeah, I hope that, so many people will take advantage of this.
Hey, Tower Yogis. So I'm not really sure what happened, but unfortunately, the last few minutes of our interview got cut off. So please do attend this free self-defense workshop to learn more from Storm on Saturday, December 14th from 2 to 3:30. There is a 25-person cap on this workshop, and so I think at the time of this recording, there has already been about 9 or 10 people who have signed up. So if you know you want to go, sign up immediately through the app or website. All right, see you then.
Thanks again for listening in and joining our yoga community. If it so resonates, please share this episode with a friend. Remember, the inner light of awareness within me honors the inner light of awareness within you. Until next time, stay grounded, stay present, and keep flowing with grace.